I never expected to catch anything. That's the truth. I wasn't looking for signs. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't playing detective. I was just in a hotel room in Chicago on the tail end of a 3-day business trip, too wired to sleep and too tired to think straight. My coworkers had already turned in for the night. I'd left a half-eaten burger on the desk, ESPN murmuring in the background, and I decided, God knows why, to open up our shared banking app. Call it habit. Call it boredom. I wasn't looking for anything in particular. I just wanted to make sure the utilities hadn't overcharged again, that our mortgage had cleared, that nothing had bounced. Normal stuff. But then I saw it. Astoria Boutique Hotel, $214.08. I sat up. At first, I assumed it was a mistake. I checked the location, East Riverside, 5 blocks from our house. And the timestamp? Check-in, 10:51 p.m. Check-out, 3:37 a.m. That wasn't a hotel stay. That was a visit. A few hours. Late night. That was something else. I stared at the transaction like it might rearrange itself into something innocent if I looked hard enough. Maybe Megan had booked it for someone else? Maybe she'd been helping a friend? Maybe there was some totally non-suspicious explanation. I wanted that to be true. I really, really did. I tried to put it out of my mind. Closed the app. Shut off the TV. Turned off the lamp. Laid in bed. Stared at the ceiling. But sleep never came. The next morning, I got a text from our neighbor Sandra. Your grass is *ling it this week. The new system's working face with tears of joy clapping hands. Just a friendly neighbor thing. We talked about my sprinkler setup at a block party a month earlier. But then, after a minute, she followed up with a second message. Oh, by the way, I saw Megan come home late last night. She was barefoot? Kinda hilarious. Shoes in her hands, hair was a mess. Looked like a good time face with tears of joy. That second message hit harder than the hotel receipt. I stared at my phone for a long time. Megan hadn't mentioned anything about going out. No texts, no heads up. And if she had just been out with friends, why hadn't she said anything? Why barefoot? Why the Astoria? I kept trying to stitch a reasonable story together. But the seams didn't hold. Still, I didn't confront her. Not directly. I wanted to give her a chance to explain. I needed to know if she'd lie to my face. When I got home that Sunday night, she greeted me like nothing had happened. Big smile. Hair curled. She even had brownies in the oven. Megan always cooked when she was nervous. Welcome home, she said, wrapping her arms around my neck. She smelled like vanilla and shampoo and something else I couldn't place. Like she'd changed every product she used since I left. Smells good, I said. What's the occasion? She shrugged. Just missed you. Thought you'd want something sweet after traveling all day. We sat at the kitchen island. She handed me a brownie, poured me a glass of milk like I was 12 years old, and asked about Chicago. I told her about the conference, the over-air-conditioned ballrooms, the awful coffee. She laughed, nodded, asked all the right questions. Then I asked, as casually as I could manage, how was your weekend? She paused for half a second, too long if you know someone well, and then jumped in with a smile that felt too forced. Oh my God! It was chaos, she said, waving her hand. Chloe had a meltdown. Total relationship apocalypse. So we did a spontaneous girls' night. I booked a room at the Astoria so nobody had to drive. Just wine, takeout, and drama. You know how it is. She laughed like it was funny, like it was a harmless little story. And maybe if I hadn't seen the timestamps, the barefoot detail, and that smirk she tried to hide, I might have believed her. Instead, I just nodded and sipped my milk. She kept going. I paid since my card was already on file from Emma's bachelorette party last year. It wasn't a big deal. And the room was cute. Had one of those rainfall showers. Super girly. And you all stayed the night? She hesitated. Well, I came home around 3-ish. Chloe passed out and everyone else had already called their Ubers. I didn't want to be stuck there alone. I nodded again. Smart. Why? Huh. Why the tone? She asked, narrowing her eyes. You sound weird. What's going on? I was just asking, I said, trying to picture it, that's all. She tilted her head and stared at me, suspicious now. But not the good kind of suspicious, the performative kind. The kind people use when they're trying to turn the tables. You think I'm lying? She asked. I didn't say that. You don't believe I paid for a girl's night? Seriously? Jake, you're seeing shadows where there are none. I held her gaze. I wanted to say, then show me the texts. Show me Chloe's meltdown. Show me a single photo. A single tag. But I didn't. Because I already knew I wouldn't find any. Instead, I said, I believe you. It was a lie. But it bought me time. She relaxed, slightly. Turned the conversation toward lighter things. Grocery lists, her Pilates class, some weird TikTok recipe she wanted to try. I nodded in all the right places, but my mind was stuck 5 blocks away, in a hotel room with a check-in time of 10:51 p.m. and a checkout at 3:37 a.m. Something didn't sit right. And once you start seeing the cracks, you start seeing them everywhere. That night, I lay in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling. She fell asleep fast, the way she always did after a long weekend. I watched the rise and fall of her chest, the way her hair curled slightly over her cheek, the rhythm of her breath. I wanted to believe the story. I desperately wanted to believe it. But I couldn't. Not anymore. That tiny transaction in a banking app, that late-night check-in, that barefoot walk home, it had changed something. It didn't just raise a red flag. Planted a seed. And seeds grow. After that night, I started noticing everything. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't help it anymore. Once you catch the first lie, every detail that used to feel normal starts to look off. Harmless things suddenly feel like puzzle pieces that don't quite fit. Megan didn't change overnight. That's the thing. It wasn't some dramatic switch. It was slow, sneaky, gradual, like erosion. You don't see it right away, you just wake up one day and the whole cliffside is gone. I started remembering things I'd brushed off. The first were the late-night workouts. They'd started in spring. Megan had gotten into fitness mode, saying she needed time to herself and that evening workouts helped her process stress. I was proud of her at first, encouraged it even, told her she looked amazing. But now I thought back on it. She'd leave after dinner, always dressed in matching Lululemon sets and perfume. Who wears perfume to a gym? Some nights she'd be gone until 11:30, sometimes midnight. I'd ask how it went and she'd shrug. Just the usual. No photos, no Instagram stories, no check-ins or selfies. And when I asked who she worked out with, she'd toss out names I barely recognized. Sierra, Rena, this girl from class. They, floaty. I didn't push. Back then, I thought that's what trust looked like, giving someone space. Turns out, space is exactly what cheaters need. And then came the phone. She'd always been a little private, but not like this. She changed her passcode in July. I only noticed when I picked up her phone by mistake, thinking it was mine. She snatched it out of my hands so fast it startled me. Sorry, she said, laughing it off. Work stuff. You know how crazy things have been. I nodded like an idiot. But now I remembered that moment like it was a flashing neon sign. The notifications were the next thing to vanish. One morning, I noticed her screen was blank. No banners, no previews. Then I noticed something worse. The Messages app had no history. Like nothing. Zero. Every day she wiped her chats clean. Texts with friends, group chats, even her family. It was like she reset her social life every night before bed. And on Fridays, her location sharing just stopped working. She blamed her phone dying, or bad service, or a weird iOS bug. Come on. Her Apple Watch also started dying at weirdly convenient times, always right after 8 p.m. She claimed the battery was bad. I offered to get it checked out. She refused. Said she didn't want to waste money on something so dumb. Every excuse was thin, barely held together with tape and good intentions. And I kept telling myself not to jump to conclusions, that I was just being paranoid, that I had no hard proof. But deep down, I knew. There was this one Friday night in late August that really sealed it. She said she was meeting the girls in East Riverside. this trendy little area full of cocktail bars and rooftop lounges. She dressed up in this sleek black dress she usually saved for anniversaries. Her heels clicked on the tile as she moved through the house. Hair curled, makeup perfect, gold hoop earrings she hadn't worn in months. "You look amazing," I told her, and I meant it. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'll probably be late," she said, checking her phone. "Don't wait up, okay?" I nodded, pretending to be casual, pretending I hadn't already memorized the lift charges that kept appearing on our bank statement around that same area every Friday night. That night, her phone never pinged. No tags, no stories, no texts. I tried not to obsess. I turned on a game, ordered takeout, scrolled through her friends' profiles hoping to find some kind of confirmation, but nothing. Total radio silence. She came home at 2:12 a.m. I watched from the upstairs hallway as she quietly unlocked the door, tiptoed in, and dropped her shoes at the entryway. Her hair was messy, lipstick smudged. She had that look you only get after a long, complicated night. She didn't know I was awake. Didn't know I saw her grab her phone, look at it for a while, then delete something before heading to the bathroom. The shower ran for a long time. I went back to bed, pretended I was asleep when she climbed in beside me. And still, I said nothing. The following Monday, I went to a small dinner with Megan and a few of her friends. People I'd met before but never felt totally comfortable around. There was something rehearsed about them. Every time I asked how their weekend went, I got the same vague answers. "Oh, we just needed a night to unwind. Girls' time, no boys allowed. We don't do guilt and jealousy." That last one stuck with me. It was said by her friend Shelby, and she looked right at me when she said it. Almost like it was a warning. The way they spoke felt rehearsed, like they'd practiced lines before arriving, like they were subtly defending Megan's story before I'd even asked questions. After that night, I started noticing her new friends popping up in conversation. Names I had never heard before, people she never introduced me to. "Lauren says this cleanser changed her skin. Cass told me about this incredible wine bar. I'm meeting Lex for a quick workout after work." Lauren, Cass, Lex. None of them were in any photos. None of them had public profiles. I started to think they weren't even real. And every time I tried to have a normal conversation, she acted like I was interrogating her. She became icy, defensive. Once, I asked her why she was always deleting her texts. She blinked at me like I'd insulted her. "Wow, seriously, Jake? You really don't trust me, do you?" "It just seems excessive," I said, trying to stay calm. "You never used to do that." "Yeah, well," she said, grabbing her purse. "Maybe I don't like people reading over my shoulder anymore." I wasn't reading anything. I never asked to, but her response said everything. That week, I started tracking charges on our joint account. Nothing extreme, just noting patterns. Hair appointments every other Thursday. Nails done on Tuesdays. Cocktail bars, brunch spots, and boutique shops. All centered in the same 5-block radius in East Riverside. Not one transaction matched her explanations. I told myself that maybe I was overreacting. That maybe she was just going through something. That maybe she needed space, and I was suffocating her. But the truth was becoming harder to deny. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't insecure. I wasn't controlling. I was being lied to. I didn't want to believe it. I loved Megan. I'd built a life around her. We had plans, traditions, inside jokes. I knew the way she snorted when she laughed too hard. The way she always curled up in a blanket like a burrito on cold nights. The way she hummed when she did the dishes. But all of that felt distant now. Like a memory of someone I used to know. And I had to decide. Was I going to keep pretending? Or was it time to find the truth? I made the decision on a Thursday. Megan was in the shower. Her phone, face down on the counter, buzzed twice. Once with a name I didn't recognize, and again with just the word, "Same room as last time." That was it. I didn't touch the phone. I didn't ask her about it. I just stood there, staring at the message as it lit up her screen and disappeared. When she came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, humming some indie pop song like nothing had happened, I smiled, kissed her cheek, and told her I was heading out to run errands. She smiled back and told me to grab more oat milk. Instead, I called a private investigator. His name was Colin. A friend of mine from college had used him during his divorce. Said the guy was expensive but surgical. I gave him everything: Megan's schedule, the workout times, the bars she visited, the banking patterns, the names she dropped, even the boutique hotel receipts. He didn't ask a lot of questions. Just told me, "Give me a week." He didn't need a week. On day 5, he sent a Dropbox folder with one word in the subject line: confirmed. I don't know what I expected to feel opening it. Fury? Sadness? Relief? What I felt was numb, like my body had gone on autopilot. The first image was of Megan and a man I'd never seen before. Tall, square-jawed, business casual. Having dinner together at a trendy little spot in East Riverside. I recognized the restaurant immediately. Megan had once said it was too fussy for date night. In the photo, they were seated on the patio, wine glasses in hand, leaning close. She was laughing. He was touching her wrist. Second photo. The two of them walking toward the Marigold Hotel a few blocks away. His arm hovered behind her like muscle memory. She didn't pull away. Third photo, them at the front desk. The timestamp read 11:04 p.m. You could see the front desk clerk handing them a single room key. I clicked through the files, barely breathing. Colin had also pulled digital key log data from the hotel. Both of their names were used to access the room. The logs showed 2 unlocks. One at 11:11 p.m. One at 7:03 a.m. No other entries. No other exits. There was a receipt from the hotel's in-house restaurant. 2 entrees. 2 cocktails. Dessert. The charge matched the time and date. Then the rideshare logs. A shared lift from the restaurant to the hotel. Another one the next morning. Megan going back toward our side of town. Alone. Colin didn't stop there. He dug into her iCloud. Somehow, I didn't ask how he got access to her backup files. There were photos. **TS. Even a live photo from inside the hotel mirror. That one hit the hardest. It was Megan in a new green dress I'd never seen before, standing in front of the mirror, posing. Her expression was carefree, almost proud. She'd used the live function so it moved. The photo played in a short loop. She tucked her hair behind her ear, smiled, adjusted her strap. But the real punch was in the reflection. Behind her, half out of frame, was the same man, shirtless, holding a drink. That was the moment it went from suspicion to reality, from theory to proof. She was cheating. I stared at that photo for 10 minutes. Didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't throw my laptop across the room. I just stared. It felt like looking at someone I didn't know, someone I used to love but hadn't truly seen in months. Colin followed up with a text. Same guy has been spotted twice before with her. Office building, coffee shop, might be a coworker. Want me to dig? I typed back, yes. It didn't take long. His name was Tyler Moreno, 35, divorced, works in software sales, same company as Megan, different department. He was listed as a client liaison on one of the partnership decks she showed me months ago. I remembered it because she'd complained about someone named Tyler missing a deadline. Guess he wasn't missing much anymore. The next few days were a blur. I went to work, ate lunch, talked to people, acted like nothing had changed. But every minute was a performance. Inside, I was dismantling the life I thought I had, piece by piece. I'd catch myself staring at her across the dinner table, wondering how long it had been going on, wondering if she ever felt guilty, wondering if, even now, she'd try to lie her way through it. One night, she reached for my hand while we watched a movie. I didn't flinch. I let her fingers interlace with mine. But the whole time, I could see that hotel mirror. That reflection. I didn't say a word. That Saturday, she told me she had to work late. Big deadline, she said, standing in front of the mirror, putting on earrings. Might not be home till midnight. I smiled. You're always working hard. She kissed me on the cheek. You're the best. And then she was gone. I waited exactly 30 minutes before pulling up the app Colin had set me up with. is synced with her location. Not through her phone, she'd disabled that, but through the AirTag I'd discreetly placed in her car's emergency kit. It was buried under a bunch of bandages and flares. She never even looked back there. The little dot moved across town, straight toward the Marigold. There was no dinner, no office, no emergency. I watched the dot stop at the same spot as before. I watched her enter the hotel again. And I didn't follow. I just sat there watching that tiny digital indicator stay still for hours. I imagined her there, laughing at his jokes, undressing in the same room I had proof of, making plans, lying with every breath she took. And I realized I didn't want answers. I already had them. I didn't want a confrontation. I wanted a strategy. I took *TS, archived everything, backed it all up to a private drive. I printed copies, receipts, photos, logs, location data. I bookmarked Colin's entire folder and added password protection. The next morning, she came home like nothing had happened, said the deadline was brutal, that she'd been up late with the new junior staff. She was wearing different earrings, said she'd left the others in the office. I just nodded and made her coffee. I watched her sip it, cross-legged on the couch, scrolling through her phone like we weren't living in a house of lies. I tried to imagine how many versions of herself she'd built. One for me, one for Tyler, one for whoever else she thought she had fooled. And I decided I wasn't going to let her build one more. The evidence was airtight. The lies were done. The performance was over. Now it was my turn to act. There's something about betrayal that makes you want to explode, shatter glass, scream until your throat's raw. I think most people expect that's how it's going to go. Some fiery confrontation where you finally unleash everything and demand answers, apologies, retribution. But that's not what I wanted. By the time I had the full picture, I didn't want fireworks, I wanted control. I wanted to plan. The same way Megan had carefully constructed a lie and lived inside it, I was going to construct something of my own. But mine wouldn't be a fantasy. Mine would be a legal fortress, one she wouldn't see coming. The first thing I did was sit down and make a list. Not just any list. A clear, cold list. Not emotional. Not vengeful. Just surgical. 1. Keep the house. 2. Secure temporary custody of the kids. 3. Protect my financial assets. 4. Trigger the prenup clause. 5. Do everything by the book. No scenes. No drama. No fuel for her story. That was my battle plan. I made an appointment with an attorney I found through a coworker, Ben Ortiz. Quiet guy. Sharp as hell. Known for being ruthless in high-asset divorce cases but calm in demeanor. The kind of guy who never raised his voice, but always got what he wanted. Ben didn't blink when I laid out my situation. He just listened, nodded, and asked smart questions. Infidelity clause in the prenup? Yes. Proof? Enough to burn the building down. Kids? 2. Ages 5 and 7. You want full custody? No. Just temporary for now. Stability. I want to be the primary contact, especially through the school system. He opened a folder, scribbled notes, and nodded again. We can work with this, but everything has to be precise. You want the moral high ground, you walk it clean. I agreed. No yelling. No theatrics. Just facts. We started with notarizing all the evidence. He brought in a paralegal who scanned every document, hotel logs, GPS data, photos, iCloud content. Even the reflection *T with Tyler half-naked in the background. We attached it all to an affidavit and linked it to the infidelity clause in the prenup. That clause was gold. The prenup wasn't something we thought much about when we signed it. Megan had even joked about it. You really think I'm going to cheat on you? She'd asked with a laugh. Apparently, I should have said yes. The clause specified that if either party was proven to have committed adultery during the marriage, the other could claim sole use of the primary residence and retain all personal premarital assets. It also voided spousal support. Ben told me, "You're in a strong position, Jake. The court doesn't always enforce prenups word for word, but this is about as clean as it gets." Next, We filed an emergency motion for temporary exclusive use of the home and temporary custody of the kids. Because of the nature of the infidelity, and the fact that I had documented everything, Ben felt confident we'd win the initial hearing without delay. We also notified the kids' school. I became the primary contact on all forms, with Megan listed as secondary, pending court proceedings. It wasn't about punishing her, it was about consistency. If this was going to blow up, the kids deserved stability. One home, one routine. I froze the joint savings account. Legally, I couldn't drain it, but I had every right to pause access until legal mediation began. Ben helped me set up a new personal account for incoming paychecks, and I rerouted all automatic deposits. Every move I made had a paper trail. Every paper trail was legally admissible. In parallel, Ben drafted the divorce petition. We agreed it would be filed and served the same day all temporary motions were granted. Timing was everything. The goal was to lock things down before she had a chance to start spinning the narrative. I remember the moment Ben leaned back in his chair and said, "What we're doing here is precision. The less emotional you are, the stronger your case gets." I nodded. I wasn't feeling much of anything anymore. Not in a way I could explain. I was beyond shock, beyond grief. I was in execution mode. Megan still had no idea. At home, everything looked normal. I smiled when I needed to. I cooked dinner, played with the kids, asked her how her day went. Sometimes she kissed me on the cheek before leaving for yoga. Sometimes she came back and said things like, "We should go away next month. Just us." I nodded and told her that sounded great. She didn't know I already had a service processor lined up. Didn't know I had the locks ready to be changed under a temporary court order. Didn't know I was quietly preparing to remove every illusion of control she thought she had. And it wasn't about revenge. It was about truth and protecting what mattered. One night, while she was asleep, I sat in the kitchen and looked through our wedding album. It was one of those handcrafted books with soft linen pages and heavy matte prints. We were smiling in every **T. Laughing, holding hands, spinning in the sunlight. I didn't feel bitterness looking at it. I didn't feel nostalgia either, just distance. Like I was looking at two people who had died quietly and been replaced by strangers. The next morning, I dropped the signed documents at Ben's office and got the final instructions. The filing would go in Thursday morning. The temporary orders would be submitted to the judge's clerk and pushed through on a priority basis. Standard procedure in infidelity-based petitions involving children. Once signed, the process server would hand-deliver the envelope to Megan. Location, her office lobby. Midday. Maximum impact. She wouldn't be able to fake a smile and stall. Wouldn't be able to control the setting. Wouldn't be able to pre-write a script. Ben looked me in the eye and asked one last time, "You sure you're ready for this?" I didn't hesitate. "I've been ready since the night she came home barefoot." He smiled just barely. "Then we'll make it clean. No fireworks. Just results." I walked out of that office knowing the next time Megan looked at me, she wouldn't be looking at the husband she thought she could manipulate. She'd be looking at the man who knew, and who wasn't going to let her write the ending. Thursday arrived like a thunderstorm I'd watched crawl across the horizon for weeks. I woke up early. Megan was still asleep, her body turned away from me, curled under the duvet like a child hiding from consequences. She looked peaceful. Maybe that's what stung the most. The way she could lie in bed beside me night after night, pretending everything was fine. While I was preparing court motions, she was preparing excuses. While I was pulling documents together, she was pulling away. But today, the performance ended. By 9 a.m., the filing was done. Ben submitted the petition for divorce, the temporary custody orders, and the exclusive use claim to the court clerk. The judge signed off by 10:30. Megan's access to our joint accounts was frozen. The house was now legally under my sole control until further notice. And most importantly, the kids were officially under my primary care. All it took was a file folder, a quiet strategy, and the truth. By noon, the process server was parked outside her office. He was a pro, middle-aged, forgettable, polite in a detached way. We'd given him a photo of Megan, plus the exact time she usually returned from her lunch break. She was never late. She prided herself on punctuality. The server didn't need more than 5 minutes. At 12:46 p.m., I got the text. Served. She took the envelope. No reaction. Just turned and walked away. I stared at that message for a long time, sitting alone in my car outside the elementary school, engine idling, waiting for the kids to be dismissed. I expected something: relief, victory, anger, anything. But all I felt was silence. Not the kind that comforts you, but the kind that sits in your chest like a stone. It wasn't sadness, either. It was finality, like closing a door you know you're never opening again. That afternoon, I went to the house and followed through with the next steps. The locksmith showed up at 2 o'clock. We changed the deadbolts on every entry point: front, back, garage, basement. He didn't ask questions, just did his job and handed me the new keys. Megan wouldn't be able to get in. Not without permission. Not without violating the court's temporary order. I informed the kids' school before pickup. I met with the front desk administrator and handed her a certified letter from the attorney. It listed me as the sole emergency contact, authorized to make all medical and educational decisions. Megan's name wasn't removed, just moved down the list. Secondary, non-primary guardian. That was the phrase Ben used. Quiet but powerful. I didn't tell the kids anything yet. They were too young. All they knew was that Mommy was busy with work this week, and Daddy was handling bedtime and lunches and school drop-offs. They were happy, and for now that was enough. By 5 p.m., the house was clean, calm, and under my control. I stood in the living room, surrounded by silence. No panic, no last-minute changes, no emotional whirlwind, just execution. That's when Megan started calling. It began with 1 call, then 3 more. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail, tight-voiced and fake calm. Jake, I just got some paperwork at work. I don't know what this is. Can you please call me back? I think there's been some sort of misunderstanding. I didn't respond. 10 minutes later, voicemail 2. Jake, this isn't funny. Why didn't you talk to me first? What are you doing? Then came the texts. Jake, we need to talk. This isn't how we fix things. You're blowing this out of proportion. Let's be adults. Don't let lawyers get in your head. The irony almost made me laugh. Let's be adults. This coming from the woman who'd been sneaking around boutique hotels with a coworker while I played chauffeur to our kids' soccer practices. I muted her number. The next message came from her friend Shelby. Jake, be decent. She's freaking out. You could have just talked to her like a man. That one I deleted without reading the rest. Shelby had been part of the lie from the start. One of the women feeding her stories, repeating those little buzzwords like freedom and boundaries every time Megan wanted to disappear for a night. They weren't friends. They were enablers. By 7:30 p.m., I was sitting at the kitchen table with the kids, helping them with their math homework. Megan was still calling. I left my phone in the other room and focused on fractions. At 9 o'clock, I put the kids to bed. Read them the same bedtime story she used to read. Turned on the nightlight. Kissed their foreheads. Then I went downstairs and checked my phone. 6 missed calls. 2 voicemails. A long email. I didn't listen. I didn't read it. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of thinking she could still control the tone. Because for the first time in this marriage, she wasn't holding the pen. The next morning, Megan showed up at the house. I saw her on the security camera before she reached the porch. She knocked, then rang the bell. She looked tired, worn out, the kind of tired that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from watching the lies crumble. I didn't open the door. Instead, I turned on the intercom. You need to contact your attorney, Megan. You've been served. The court order is active. You're not allowed inside. She stepped back, clearly stunned to hear my voice come through the speaker like a stranger. She tried to compose herself. Jake, please. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. You did, I said calmly. You made choices. Now we live with them. I can explain. You had months to explain. Her voice cracked. I want to see the kids. You'll see them. When the court says so. Her composure slipped then. Her shoulders fell. Her lips trembled. Jake, please. Let's not do it like this. It's already done. She stood there for a while. Said nothing. Eventually, she turned and walked back down the driveway. I didn't watch her leave. I sat back down at the table, opened my laptop, and emailed Ben. She tried to enter the property. Security footage saved. No incident. No threats. Just wanted you to have a record. He replied within 10 minutes. Good. Stay calm. Don't engage emotionally. She'll try everything now. Guilt, shame, bargaining. Stick to the plan. You're doing well. That's when I realized something strange. I wasn't angry anymore. Not the way I thought I'd be. Not in the fire and brimstone kind of way. I wasn't even sad. What I felt was clear. Like the fog had lifted and everything finally made sense. The affair, the deflection, the secret phone habits, the gaslighting. All of it had been an operation. And now I had executed my own. Clean, quiet, legal, complete. This wasn't a breakup. It was a transition of power. Megan's one-night plan blew up fast. A fire alarm at the hotel forced guests outside, right into a blogger's camera. Footage of her and Tyler went viral. HR got involved when Tyler's name was tied to a vendor contract Megan managed. Then Tyler's wife reached out to me with *TS and a video. Everything was forwarded to my lawyer. Her career, like her marriage, started to unravel. Fast.